WrestleMania 29 is in the books. Brian Fritz here from BetweenTheRopes.com. I'm joined by John Pollock from the Fight Network, Jim Korderas from The Score here to talk about the event here from MetLife Stadium. So, first impressions overall of WrestleMania 29?
Well, I think that the big takeaway for a lot of people will be the Undertaker-CM Punk match. I think it was match of the night. The crowd certainly responded to that as the biggest match of the night, and it was really tough to follow. So, I mean, once again, I think the Undertaker is really going to be the talking point coming out of this show.
No, agreed. I thought that match stole the show, and the concept that's been going for the last few years has been the Undertaker, in my opinion, being in that match-stealing spot. So I liked it. I thought overall it was a good show, you know, because going in, the expectations may have been a little bit lower than normal, but I thought the show overall was pretty good.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Undertaker and CM Punk stole the show. You know, the crowd really got into that. People are invested into the streak. I think a lot of fans really like CM Punk. The expectations were kind of lowered for that match, especially because Taker we don't get to see all the time. And people are wondering, is it going to be healthy? Can he do it again? And I thought Punk did a great job of the match. Those guys stole the show. The main event, we see John Cena get the win back against The Rock from last year. He gets some redemption and becomes WWE champion. I thought they did a great job at the end of that match and really getting the crowd into it. It was a little bit slow early on, but the crowd got into it with all the reversals that they did, and I thought they turned in a great performance in the show.
Yeah, I think following Taker and Punk, that both Hunter, Brock Lesnar, and then of course John Cena and The Rock, they were really fighting to get this crowd back and invested, and I think that Rock and Cena achieved that by those final 10 minutes. There were a lot of little callback spots to the last year's WrestleMania finish, some clever near falls, and the result was by the end of it they got them, which was the key.
One of the disadvantages they had was in years past you'd have that buffer match where, you know, the crowd will sit down and you know, they can take it easy, take a little breather before the main event comes up. They didn't
great reason for having those buffer matches.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they didn't have that this year. Obviously, I guess due to time constraints, the 8-person tag, I guess, had to be scrubbed, and that probably was the slot for it, I'm assuming, but you know.
Yeah,
things happen.
And it's funny because you talk about expectations for that match, and I think, oh wow, it is the two biggest guys that they have in the company, the two biggest stars on the stage in New York, that there's going to be some people that sit there and go, how good of a match are they going to have? I thought they had a better match than what they had last year.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. I thought they went 10 minutes too long last year. I thought that this year, instead of going 10 minutes too long, those final 10 minutes really made the match for me.
Yeah, and it told a great story. Like you said, it tied back little nuances to last year and that sort of stuff. For me, good storytelling trumps all.
Yeah. Brock Lesnar loses to Triple H, so Triple H does not retire. Very physical, very violent match. I think what we expected. Hunter gets the pin after the pedigree on the steel steps. I'm still a little bit surprised, though. I mean, not from a standpoint that Triple H won and he's not going to be retiring. I could have seen that. But we've always thought Lesnar is a monster. We know that he likes to inflict pain, he gets enjoyment out of it. That's the storyline there. But at the same time, he's a guy that has a hard time winning matches.
Yeah, it was an interesting situation that they were thrust upon into this because, you know, once upon a time this could have been the final chapter for Brock Lesnar. Instead, we know that's going to continue with the career stipulation added in there. I think that kind of pigeonholed themselves in terms of the options they had available for them. And that match, I think, more than anything, was the biggest victim of following Punk and Taker because the crowd, they needed a chance to come down after those 20 minutes where those guys were just, you know, lighting the audience on fire, and you didn't really get that come down.
Again, that buffer is really what you need between, you know, really exciting matches that get the crowd invested. You didn't have that again, or at least not enough of it. Maybe a video package or two could have been placed in there, something, a little backstage stuff, anything. I am a little surprised. I would have thought it would have been interesting if Rock would have come out on top and have Triple H.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there have been ways to have done that where it's wrestling. I know maybe some people don't like it, but you can bring Triple H back.
What are you saying about the sanctity of retirement matches in wrestling, bro?
I know.
What are you trying to get at?
But you know what? Shawn Michaels has lived and died by it. So you set a great example of, hey, when I say I'm going to retire, I'm going to stand by that.
And great use of him tonight. You know, just in little spurts, just enough to get you interested.
I think Terry Funk just walked by. That's when it comes to retirement matches.
Yeah. So, give me each, for both you guys, favorite moment and something that stood out as something that maybe you didn't like as much in the show.
Well, I mean, I just thought Undertaker and Punk tonight, it wasn't just kind of the finishing sequences. I just thought those two clicked perfectly tonight. I think you couldn't have asked for a better performance from the Undertaker, given all the questions surrounding him, We've only seen him do the one house show match over the past year, so I think he just really impressed me tonight. I really liked the old school spot that Punk threw in there. I thought that was really nice, and I liked some of the near fall spots that they created in all of the 3 big matches. I thought they had some really clever stuff, so that stands out for me. In terms of a negative, I think the crowd really hurt Hunter and Brock Lesnar, and I didn't really have as much problem with the match, but the crowd certainly brought that down.
Yeah, I agree. For me, Undertaker, the streak now has become almost, I don't want to say it's more important than the WWE title, but for WrestleMania purposes,
I would say it might.
Yeah,
it probably is.
I think it's become mythic.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, I think maybe next year they should think about putting that match on. Yeah. Whoever the opponent happens to be, whether it is a Brock Lesnar, whether it is John Cena, I don't know.
I think it's the one kind of character that you can justify putting in that role, because we've seen now a number of times where it's really tough to follow.
Yeah, I think to me the thing that really stood out are just some of the little things that happened in matches. You talked about the CM Punk Undertaker match and kind of going back to last year and the old school spots by Punk. The little things that Punk did in that match by doing the same kind of things that Undertaker does in that to kind of play off of him, I thought was great. I thought the facials and screaming by Brock Lesnar in his matches, making him out to be this unbelievable monster, were great. And then even in the main event, the little things that they did to play back to last year and tie it into this year, I thought really worked good. You talked about the crowd. I thought that was the only negative from a standpoint of, I don't know how well it went across on TV, because we're here, we've talked about this with WWE and being these huge stadiums, the crowd gets into shows. It doesn't always translate for the audience at home because all of the volume goes straight up, but if you're here, I think you get into it, you hear it, it just might not translate as well, and we're the only ones that kind of get that because we're here in the building.
Yeah, it is definitely a different feel when you hear live.
Yeah, and by the way, a good business night for WWE and for MetLife Stadium. 80,676 people, second most attended WrestleMania in WWE history, and also, by the way, a nice grossing event for them as well, and for MetLife Stadium. $12.3 million. That's a new record, not only for this stadium, but also for WWE. And only 363 days until WrestleMania 30 comes to New Orleans. So for Jim Korderas and John Pollock, I'm Brian Fritz. Thanks for joining us here on BetweenTheRopes.com.